Jujutsu Kaisen is an insanely popular manga that has some crazy action in its dark story. You will never find a manga like it. And in this video, I'll be going through the entirety of Season 1 and the movie to cover everything you need to know before Season 2. Yes, chapters 1 to 63 and the prequel volume, all timestamped, so sit back and enjoy the beginning of Jujutsu Kaisen. Our story begins with Megumi Fushiguro, a student at Tokyo Jujutsu High, sent to a high school to find a cursed object. Meanwhile, Yuji Itadori and his friends hang out after school at the Occult Research Club. However, he gets challenged by the coach of the track team, who forces him to join his club unless Yuji can shot put further than him. It is revealed that Yuji has extraordinary abilities in physical activities with insane natural strength, showing it off to the track team. Meanwhile, Megumi can sense a grade 2 curse in the area, which could be related to a cursed object at the school, and he passes Yuji running to the hospital as Yuji is visiting his grandfather, who tells him to help people and create a life that will end with people surrounding him, and with that, he dies. And outside he meets Megumi, who says that a talisman used to seal a curse has worn off, and this object is in your school, and asks where it is, as we see the occult members unraveling it. This object is a finger attracting curses to the two as Yuji and Megumi rush back. Megumi heads in first with his divine dogs, beings he calls from shadows, but he is too late in helping the two. However, at the last second, Yuji bursts through the window as he wants to help people have peaceful deaths like his granddad and not suffer due to curses. He saves them, but another curse crashes into Megumi. Yuji attacks with his bare hands, yet this doesn't work. A curse can only be exercised by other cursed energy. So in order to get cursed energy, Yuji just eats the finger. Yep.
Ate the whole thing in one bite.
Megumi believes there is a 1 in a million chance that the cursed object will not kill him as Yuji transforms and destroys the enemy, as the finger belonged to Ryomen Sukuna, now reincarnated. He wishes for one thing, to massacre all humans. However, Yuji still fights him and gets control of his body. Megumi though isn't taking any chances and goes to arrest Yuji. We then cut to Yuji tied in a sealed room in front of a man wearing a blindfold. This is a teacher at Jujutsu High named Satoru Gojo, who says a secret execution of Yuji has been approved by the higher-ups. As we see what happened at the school, Gojo appeared on the roof learning what Yuji did, so asked Yuji to turn into Sukuna and then take control after 10 seconds. Which Yuji does, showing he is in control of his body. Gojo then knocks Yuji unconscious, while Megumi pleads with him to not kill Itadori. And the present Gojo reveals how Jujutsu High has 6 of Sukuna's fingers that can't be destroyed or sealed. So the higher-ups want to kill Yuji, which will kill the curse, or as his lifeline, let Yuji help them find the 20 total fingers. They will then kill him after that, essentially letting him live longer if he helps. After seeing that the occult members are all fine, Yuji tells Gojo that he will become a Jujutsu sorcerer to destroy curses that ruin people's lives, and eats the next finger, as Megumi appears with the both heading to Tokyo Jujutsu High. First though, he has to interview with the school's principal, and Sukuna still controls some part of Yuji with mouths that he can appear wherever he wants. He says he will kill Gojo, and Gojo is honored to be targeted by the King of Curses. By the way, this Gojo guy is really some character. He was only late to the rooftops as he was buying sweets, but he has some immeasurable hidden strength, as Gojo tells Yuji that he would easily defeat Sukuna. So they meet the principal Yaga, whose technique is to create cursed dolls. As he asks why Yuji wants to attend Jujutsu High, Yuji says to help people, but Yaga disagrees and sends his doll to attack Yuji, and it will keep attacking until he gets the true answer from Itadori. Yaga believes sorcerers should be a little insane to win against curses, not doing the job because someone told them to. Itadori eventually reveals he doesn't want people to get hurt by Sukuna and sit idly by, to not regret the way he lives. Yaga accepts this and says he's enrolled, where Gojo now says Yuji is like a radar to finding the other fingers since the first one calls out to them. Now with Megumi, they head to meet the third first-year student, Nobara Kujisaki. And while waiting at the station, Yuji finds it weird there's only 3 students. Megumi says Jujutsu sorcerers are extremely rare as Yuji gets a new outfit, revealing this series as the king of shonen drip. And they see Nobara, who has an interesting personality, and Gojo takes him to an abandoned warehouse to exercise a curse to test their abilities. He tells Yuji to not use Sukuna, instead, use this knife. Nobara forces Yuji to split up and find it, as he then finds a different curse which he easily defeats. As we see, Nobara's technique is that she uses tools such as hammers and nails to blow open enemies with cursed energy. However, another curse holds the kid hostage, and she lays her weapon down, wishing she could see Sayori one last time. But suddenly Yuji bursts through the walls, saving the boy, and Nobara uses her technique unique straw doll on the chopped arm to destroy the escaping curse. Sort of like voodoo dolls where she just needs some part to damage the rest of it. And yep, she's plenty crazy for the job. Nobara says she wants this job to move from the countryside and stay true to herself. A while later, a cursed womb appears at a detention center, and the three have to take care of it. The mission to evacuate any survivors. They should avoid any special grade curses, the highest level of danger to sorcerers, as one mother begs Yuji to save her son if possible. They get debriefed by Kiyotaka, the assistant director, who lowers the curtain to let them enter. These curtains hide anyone inside from the outside world. Megumi summons one divine dog and they enter, where they find corpses including the woman's son. Yuji wants to bring the body back, but Megumi disagrees to not help someone who is in juvie. Why bother saving them if they'll hurt people in the future? Yuji then angrily replies, "Why did you save me then?" However, Nobara gets sucked into a dark hole and Megumi's dog is killed as a special grade curse appears. Yuji attacks but loses the knife and his hand, while Nobara faces up against several curses in the void. Megumi flees with his flying Shikigami Nue as he tries to find Nobara while Yuji holds off the curse. Sukuna refuses to come out and says if he does, he will kill both Megumi and Nobara instead of the curse. So Yuji told Megumi to run far away with Nobara, and once given the signal, he will swap to Sukuna. But Yuji is outmatched and realizes he might die here. Elsewhere, Nobara almost wins against those curses, but Megumi saves her with his Toad Shikigami. Now Yuji, feeling helpless, realizes he can use those negative feelings to harness curse energy, putting it into his hand to hit the enemy. Yet it doesn't work. However, he hears Megumi's dog growl and swaps to Sukuna, who is annoyed at his tactics. Sukuna figures out the best plan is to work with the curse to keep Yuji in check. However, the curse just attacks him, so Sukuna heals Yuji and decides to kill the curse with very little effort. While outside, Kiyotaka takes Nobara to the hospital as Megumi waits for Yuji. Sukuna kills the curse using his domain expansion, Malevolent Strike, taking the finger it had and realizing that Yuji ain't taking back over due to how weak he is, as Sukuna grins with malice. He then suddenly appears outside next to Megumi and says Itadori is paying for overusing his power without restriction. However, to take him hostage, Sukuna rips out Yuji's heart, since as a curse he can live without it, but if Yuji transforms back, he will die in the body. Sukuna eats the second finger and goes to kill Megumi. To win, Megumi thinks the only way is to make Sukuna need his heart back in the body, and he fights but is no match. Sukuna also asks Megumi why he didn't leave Yuji. Megumi says he knew a girl named Sumiki whose life was unfair, and to help people receive fairness, he will save them, and he admits he never regretted saving Itadori. Yuji then takes control before telling Megumi to live a long life and falls over dead. Yeah, really killing the main character so quick, huh? As we see a man named Geto with a group of cursed spirits who had made the womb in the center earlier to get intel on Sukuna's new vessel. Also, regular people can't see these curses, so it's just like Geto is by himself. Here, bro, really eating out alone just like that. Gojo speaks to Kiyotaka, wondering what happened while he was gone, believing the higher-ups sent Yuji on this mission to kill him in his absence, since they want Sukuna dead, while the Dr. Shoko goes to dissect Yuji's body to learn more about him. Meanwhile, Megumi and Nobara pretend to not be affected by Yuji's death, and are interrupted by the second years at the school, Maki, Zenin, Inumaki, and Panda, who's just a talking panda. They invite them to the Kyoto Goodwill event, where the school will compete against their sister school in Kyoto. Back at the diner, Jogo here believes that curses are the true forms and all humans should be eliminated, and Geto reveals the key to winning this is to seal Gojo since he's too powerful to kill, and they should make an ally of Sukuna. As we see in Sukuna's domain, him and Yuji squaring off, Sukuna tries to negotiate to revive Yuji that he should be able to switch out whenever he chants in chain, and that this deal will be forgotten when Itadori wakes up, and this would be a binding contract, but Yuji refuses. Sukuna says, okay, we'll fight to the death. If I win, you agree. Yuji agrees to this, and Sukuna instantly cuts his head off, winning the bet. Outside, Gojo tells Kiyotaka his dream that the higher-ups are all scum, and he wants to rebuild the Jujutsu world, so is training students that will become the new future, including classmates we haven't seen, Hikari and Yuta. Suddenly though, Yuji reawakens, shocking everyone. Gojo says to keep him listed as dead, to not get targeted by the higher-ups, and will train Yuji in secret just in time for the Kyoto event. Meanwhile, Geto says that they should seal Gojo in a special grade cursed object, the Prison Realm. Jogo gets excited that Geto has the object, and says he will go out and kill Gojo in exchange for it. Megumi then visits the mother, giving her the dead son's name tag from Juvie, and apologizes for not saving him. Returning to train, he sees everyone practicing, where Maki is a non-curse user who uses curse tools to fight. Inumaki has a speech curse where anything he says can be a devastating following order, but it slowly hurts him, so he only talks in words related to food, and panda is a panda. Gojo meanwhile is teaching Yuji how to perform Jujutsu sorcery, which is an innate talent, and Yuji has none of it. However, Gojo hopes he can master Sukuna's technique into himself, so to use cursed energy to aid his physical attacks like when he punched the wound. He can't at the moment because he needs to control his emotions, and to do this, Gojo makes Yuji watch movies. I told you this dude ain't conventional. He gives Yuji a doll that the principal made, which will punch him if not given a constant stream of cursed energy, while the movies will try to throw him off, stirring a variety of emotions in him. Megumi meanwhile discusses the cursed tools with Maki and Panda, and believes that even though he fights hands-free, he may be able to store weapons within the shadows of his Shikigami. Gojo then leaves Yuji alone, but asks if Itadori agreed to make a deal with Sukuna to get his heart fixed. Yuji remembers talking but can't think back to the details. As Gojo leaves, he then gets ambushed in the mountainside by Jogo. However, he did see it coming. Gojo easily withstands the flames and notes how this special grade curse is highly intelligent and unregistered. Jogo goes to attack, but Gojo withstands them all, saying how the attacks will never touch the infinity between them, and to prove it, he allows Jogo to touch his hands, yet he physically can't. Gojo explains how he can bring infinity to reality. Essentially, the closer you get to him, the more further you move away. Infinity. And he uses curse technique Reversal Red to blast Jogo away. Gojo then disappears and reappears with Yuji, saying this will be a good practical lesson for him. Yuji though is in the middle of actually controlling the doll, managing to contain his emotions. Now his next lesson is domain expansion, and Jogo realizes that this is Sukuna's vessel. Jogo uses his domain, Coffin of the Iron Mountain, turning the arena into a volcano, and these domains are cursed energy used to forge an enclosed space, which greatly boosts the stats of the user and never lets them miss an attack, so Jogo's attacks will now hit Gojo. The only counters to this are to fight it with Jujutsu, run away, which is very hard, or summon your own domain and the stronger one will override the other one. So Gojo summons his, taking off the blindfold, and brings them into unlimited void. This exposes Jogo to too much information, endless perception and communication, rendering him immobile, and the only escape is death. Gojo however removes his head and asks who sent him, as Geto and Hanami watch on. Geto, not wanting to be seen, can't help, so Hanami goes to rescue Jogo, distracting them with flowers. As Gojo is amused that these high-level curses are now working together, Geto then meets with those curses in another domain and says their plan is to steal Gojo on October 31st in Shibuya, with this patchwork character now in the group. Meanwhile, Megumi and Nobara come face to face with some of the Kyoto kids, one being Maki's sister Mai, and the third year Aoi Todo. And Todo goes to fight Megumi, asking him what type of woman he likes, saying his favorite is tall with a wide behind. Okay then. As a personal answer to this, there's a lot about someone, so Megumi thinks of Sumiki and says he has no preference as long as they are compassionate. This isn't the right answer as Todo attacks, saying Megumi is boring. Nobara tries to help but is restrained by Mai, who uses a gun, as Megumi recognizes Todo as the grade 1 who defeated all the curses on that infamous night of 100 demons. Megumi now can also combine his Shikigami together, making winged toads. However, the fight is interrupted by Inumaki and Panda scaring the Kyoto student off, as we see Nobara wounded by Mai, whose ability is to load objects with cursed energy like a gun. However, Nobara ain't going down easy, but Todo interrupts, telling Mai it's time to leave, so he can make it back in time for the tall idol Takada's meet and greet in Tokyo. So what is up with this dude? Maki confirms to Nobara that she doesn't have any cursed energy, and she can only see curses with the glasses she wears. She's doing all this to prove her doubt is wrong, impressing Nobara. Meanwhile in Kyoto, Gojo is meeting with their principal, as he wants to know why the higher-ups wanted to kill Yuji. Gojo believes that the new generation of sorcerers and curses won't be limited to special grade, and that Jujutsu High might not have a place in the new world. Now we cut to a month later in September, where 3 deformed high school students are found in a cinema. Leaving the scene is Mahito, who is spotted by a witness. The witness who spotted the crime is Junpei Yoshino, who gets bullied a lot at school, and went to the movies but saw those bullies there. However, Mahito killed them before they could do anything, so Junpei followed him outside and asked Mahito if he could learn to kill humans like he did. As we see Yuji with Kento Nanami, a grade 1 sorcerer, who takes him to the theater to investigate, showing him how to track residual cursed energy left behind by a cursed technique. Nanami is more cold, used to be an office worker, and won't recognize Yuji as a sorcerer, so looking around they find 2 curses punches, and Nanami explains his ability is to create weak points on his enemies in a 7-to-3 ratio that he can hit even with a bandaged blade. He also says if you tell an enemy about your technique, its power can increase, which I think is just a way to explain why someone in the shonen series talk about their moves a lot. Yuji recalls his training with Gojo and that his energy has a time lag, in that he punches so fast, the energy he puts in takes time to catch up and actually delivers a second hit, called Divergent Fist. They both killed the curses, but Nanami, after taking a photo of the body, is surprised it still shows up. And back with the doctor, she reveals the bodies were human, transformed by cursed energy, and they were killed by the shock of the modification. So Yuji isn't responsible for the deaths, but he is noticeably upset. Meanwhile, Junpei meets Mahito in the sewers, who says that he's a curse, things who are born from a human's negative energy, or even things like natural disasters like the two curses Mahito hangs out with. Mahito says he was born from the hate humans feel for one another. He then tells Junpei about his human experiments, testing how big and small he can turn them into. Junpei says he doesn't care, he only gets mad if someone he cares about dies. Mahito then explains how humans have souls that are separate from the heart, which is where the emotions come from, and he can see and mold a person's soul, which is how he molds the bodies. But he supports Junpei's way of thinking in his indifference to others. Meanwhile, Yuji, Nanami, and Kiyotaka discuss the deaths and are using the Windows intel, Windows being people who can see curses but don't use any energy for whatever reason, to find the enemy's hideout, and that Junpei is a key to this, being a witness. However, they don't know if he is a curse user. So Yuji will go and talk to Junpei while Nanami goes into the sewers. Kiyotaka says to use flying heads, small curses that don't harm anyone, but if Junpei notices them, how he reacts will dignify their response. As Nanami fights through ex-humans and meets Mahito, which makes Nanami very annoyed that he has to work overtime. What a mood this guy is. Using his powers, he cuts through Mahito's hand, but thinking back, Nanami believes that this curse is related to the ones Gojo encountered earlier. Mahito reforms his arm with his technique, Idol Transformation, reshaping his own soul, and he pulls out small humans he shaped, transforming them back up to size. Elsewhere, Junpei encounters an annoying teacher who asked why he wasn't at the bully's funeral. Yuji interrupts and scares the teacher off, and says he wants to talk to Junpei. Junpei asks, why didn't you drag me away to ask? But Yuji says he noticed that Junpei didn't like that teacher, so wanted to help out. Meanwhile, Nanami is injured, but his power spikes as he reveals he is now working overtime. As we see Mahito, who had attacked him with cursed energy, but Nanami protected his body from transforming by guarding his soul with cursed energy. But this shield can't last against many hits. However, now in overtime, Mahito notices Nanami restricts his energy based on time, as he goes to collapse the wall, as his technique doesn't only work on living things. He cuts Mahito's legs and leaves, letting the roof crush him. Meanwhile, Yuji is with Junpei, however Junpei is cautious, as Mahito said to watch out for sorcerers who wear a special pin. Yuji asks about what happened in the movies, and Junpei lies. But then Itadori asks what was the movie about, and the two bond over their love of cinema. As Geto watches on, happy someone is befriending Sukuna's vessel. Yuji gives his phone number to Junpei as his mother meets the son's new friend and invites Yuji to dinner. Meanwhile, Mahito escapes the rubble by reforming his soul as Geto arrives, and Mahito reveals that he can manipulate his cursed energy purely on will alone. At Junpei's house, Yuji bonds with the family, saying that Junpei's mother is a good person. However, Junpei asks if he's a sorcerer and if he's killed anyone. Yuji says he is, but would rather not kill, but doesn't think he won't have to. As Yuji leaves, Junpei tells himself that he won't ever kill, to not stain his soul, impacted by what Yuji said. However, we see his mother in the kitchen, perplexed at a finger on the table, which draws in a cursed spirit behind her. She is then killed by that spirit. As Junpei asks Mahito what happened, Mahito says it was a finger that someone left behind who hates him. So Junpei goes to school and finds Shota, one of his bullies, while Mahito and Geto watch, calling a curtain down to hide the actions. Mahito's planned for Junpei to fight Sukuna's vessel to force Yuji into making a binding vow, and he left the finger at Junpei's house so that Jujutsu High will find it. And inside, all the kids except the teacher and Shota fall unconscious as Junpei brutalizes Shota with black marks appearing on his body. Shota apologizes, but Junpei feels no sympathy as Yuji bursts into the gym and asks what he's doing. Meanwhile, in Mahito's lair, Nanami and a grade 2 sorcerer, Ino, are surrounded. Nanami tells Ino to deal with it, and he will recommend him for grade 1, showing how sorcerers can get promoted. Yuji fights Junpei, who uses a jellyfish 25th Shikigami. As Junpei tells Yuji to leave, it's got nothing to do with him, but Itadori says that isn't for him to decide, as we see that Mahito taught Junpei how to create poison from his cursed energy and shape it into a Shikigami. However, Yuji isn't affected by the poison and throws Junpei out the window before punching him back in. Yuji begs Junpei to not throw his life away. His mother wouldn't want this for him and to come to Jujutsu High so that we can take care of you. However, Mahito interrupts. He pins Yuji to the wall as Yuji yells at Junpei to run away, but he says Mahito isn't a bad person, but then realizes all the experiments Mahito did and that he was actually bad. Ah, shocking. Mahito puts a hand on his shoulder saying Junpei should have been smarter than this and mutilates Junpei, transforming him. With nowhere to control himself, he attacks Yuji. As Yuji begs Sukuna to help, but he refuses, this confuses Mahito, who knows Sukuna has the ability to heal Junpei using reverse curse technique, which reverses negative curse energy into positive. It's mostly used to heal. However, Mahito is winning the fight, so he and Sukuna laugh at Yuji, trying to stop his fallen friend. Junpei asks Yuji why this had to happen, and dies. Now Itadori is fed up with Mahito and punches him and actually harms him due to his soul sharing a body with Sukuna. So he naturally has learned how to perceive the outlines of a soul. Yuji is now prepared to kill Mahito with all his rage and goes in for the kill as the dude escapes out the window. However, after a fight, Yuji manages to get up close, but then Mahito pierces Yuji and goes to touch his soul. But Sukuna stops him, telling Mahito to know his place, to never touch his soul again, and will let him off with a warning. Yuji headbutts Mahito and almost kills him. However, Mahito appears from behind and goes to hit, but Nanami comes in to save Yuji. Itadori updates him on what happened, and the two work together to fight Mahito, who summons more humans to attack, believing Yuji won't kill them. However, Yuji doesn't fall for this and kills them as the two pummel Mahito. But now Mahito activates his domain expansion, self-embodiment of perfection, bringing Nanami into it. Now, since in his domain, Mahito doesn't actually have to touch you to do the deforming, as the entire domain is already touching anyone inside. So Nanami pretty much has lost, as we flash back to his life after school, where he would visit a bakery for his favorite bread. But the counter girl was plagued by a small curse on her shoulder. However, he thought it was not worth exposing himself to destroy it. And at work, he was unhappy that everyone was concerned about money, which is what he was focused on after school, now being very jaded at life. Then visiting the bakery again, he notices the girl couldn't sleep due to her curse. Nanami felt his line of work never helped anyone, but bakeries do, so he helps her. And after that, he went to Gojo to work at the school, knowing what true gratitude is. Back in the present, Nanami accepts his fate, but Yuji bursts through as getting into a domain is easier than escaping, but since touching the domain meant that Mahito touched Sukuna's soul again, and Sukuna said he warned him, and destroys the domain, cutting through Mahito. Sukuna doesn't care who survives, only caring for himself, with one other person being, who was intriguing to him, being Megumi, as Mahito falls to his knees. Yuji goes to kill him, but Mahito distracts them and escapes into the sewers, as Yuji falls unconscious. Mahito later realizes how powerful Sukuna is, and that Sukuna will be the true herald for curses to take over. Itadori is then treated for his injuries, where Nanami thanks him. Yuji is still upset because those ex-humans didn't get to die natural deaths. Nanami says trying to prevent all this is very tiring, but knows Yuji will still try and will help others like he helped Nanami back then. And now Nanami recognizes Yuji as a sorcerer. As we see the bully getting told by the teacher that both deserve punishment for what they did to Junpei. We see in the hot springs Jogo, Mahito, and Geto relaxing, with Mahito now lacking cursed energy as he used a lot of it on Sukuna. Geto's plan is to now use Jujutsu High to get all the fingers so the group can then steal them. And now is the time for Yuji to surprise everyone at the school that he is still alive. Where we see the students getting ready for the Kyoto school to appear, which Maki mentioned that at the last Goodwill event, Yuta Okotsu was the only one who competed and dominated the competition. He is not here, however, which disappoints Todo as the Kyoto students arrive, with the other people being Momo, Mekamaru, and Kamu, who is part of the Zenin family. Utahime is their student supervisor who has a rivalry with Gojo, who then appears surprising everyone with Yuji. However, he doesn't get the reaction he was hoping for. The principal though is horrified to see he's still alive. Now Tokyo's principal Yaga explains the rules where in the first event, the two schools will compete to see who can exercise the most spirits in an arena, and they can still fight each other but not to kill. The second years ask about Yuji's fighting style to plan their tactics. Megumi says that Yuji would win in a fight without cursed energy. surprising Maki. On the Kyoto side, the principal demands they kill Sukuna's vessel using cursed energy so he won't be resurrected. Todo, bored, leaves saying he will kill them if they tell him what to do. As Gojo discusses with Utahime about a traitor in the school and asks her to investigate the Kyoto campus. Megumi later meets with Yuji and notices he's been through something. Yuji says it's okay and doesn't want to lose any more, which Megumi agrees with. So begins the event where the Tokyo's team split up. However, Todo bursts through and demands they all fight him. However, Yuji distracts him while the others split up to find the curses. Yuji impresses Todo, who now asks him what type of girl he likes. Yuji responds he likes tall girls with wide behinds like Jennifer Lawrence. Yes, really. Which shocks Todo, who instantly creates a fake memory of the two as best friends in middle school. Momo watches on from a broom as her classmates surround Yuji and he realizes they are trying to kill him. However, Todo stops him and fights Kamo, forcing the group to retreat as Todo wants to fight Yuji, his new best friend, one-on-one. Megumi uses Nue to knock Momo out of the sky as Maki fights Kasumi while Megumi fights Kamo. As before this, Megumi realized the Kyoto students were trying to kill Yuji, and the principal was probably the one that told them to, as Sukuna's vessel is just an object of fear to them, so they should go back and protect Yuji. While Inamaki will go on ahead to hunt the Grade 2 curse to end the event. Panda and Nobara confront Momo as Kamo says he's going to kill Yuji but for his own reason, as Megumi says that the big three sorcerer families have every reason to kill Yuji, which Kamo is part of. Kasumi with Maki says she doesn't want to attack but needs to get a high rank to earn more money for her poor family. Maki though won't hold back. Meanwhile, Yuji and Todo fight, but Todo is disappointed with Yuji's divergent fist. How the technique is all wrong. Todo says the fists hold Yuji back, and he will remain weak, and their friendship will end. Yuji says no, he doesn't want that, he wants to get stronger. So Todo reveals that his fist is too fast, and the cursed energy is left behind due to this speed. Which is fine, but the technique will not work against a special grade. So he must apply cursed energy the exact moment his fist connects. It needs to make his energy flow properly, which is something most sorcerers do consciously. All starting from the stomach. If you think of the body's energy in sections, it will delay the flow. This helps Yuji understand and unlock the potential, making Todo happy to fight his new best friend. Meanwhile, Nobara gets a little crazy with Momo, saying she'll kill them all because they were ordered to kill Yuji. However, Panda is shot by Mekamaru as Momo wants to take Nobara on her own to teach her the hardships female sorcerers like Mai have to live with. However, Panda was faking being injured and attacks Mekamaru, and it's revealed that both of them are in fact cursed corpses. As we see a man called Kokichi controlling Mekamaru from a remote location, Mekamaru realizes he can't hit Panda unless he finds the core, as Panda is in fact an abrupt mutation cursed corpse that is sentient and has emotion, all created by Principal Yaga. Kokichi reveals that he has a great level of energy in return for having a useless body. The fact that Panda gets to live carefree annoys him a lot, and Panda gets blasted, however he isn't dead, and reveals a new form, Gorilla Model. As Panda had an older sister and brother inside him, 3 cores that he can swap to use their power, this being his older brother. However, this is his last core since the other 2 were crippled from the blast before. Panda goes in close and gets hit, however Panda can move his core to a new location and wrecks Mekamaru's body. He says he admires humans for qualities he doesn't have and asks Mekamaru why he became a sorcerer. Kokichi says he wants to walk with a normal body. Panda says he can help him with that and the 2 become friends. Meanwhile, Kasumi realizes Maki is crazy strong despite having no cursed energy. She is skilled with many different weapons. While Kasumi's new shadow style, Simple Domain, allows her to intercept anyone who comes within 2 meters of her, but she can't move her feet, as Maki easily disarms her, taking Kasumi's sword. Now a grade 1 sorcerer, Mei Mei, watches the 2 with her crow in a room with Gojo, Utahime, and both principals. However, Gojo senses something is up due to the inconsistent video feed. As Momo flies away from Nobara, who can't hit her, Momo then talks a lot about how Mai faced so much discrimination due to being a female sorcerer. However, Nobara doesn't give a fuck. She uses a straw doll gathering a thread from the broom to damage it so that Nobara can finally kill her on the ground. But at the last second, she changes the hammer to a rubber one. Then Mai shoots Nobara in the temple with a rubber bullet. Maki though swoops in as the 2 sisters now fight, with Maki slicing through Mai's bullets. As we learn about their past, where Maki is only grade 4 due to her family, where Maki helped Mai ignore curses around their house. Maki hated all this sorcerer nonsense and left the family, but their dad threatened to make Mai's life harder if she left. Maki then notices Mai used 6 bullets and moves in, but Mai's cursed technique is construction to make 1 bullet a day with cursed energy. However, Maki dodges it. Seemingly like a reverse Kokichi, she has no cursed energy, but her body traded all that for superhuman physical abilities. Defeated, Mai recalls how her sister promised she would never leave and asks why she couldn't just stay and be with her. Mai never wanted to be a sorcerer and only did so because Maki went to chase her dreams. Maki responds she never could have lived with herself if she stayed being a second class in their family, and that's why she had to leave. Meanwhile, Kamo fights Megumi, who uses his blood to control objects, making arrows defy physics, which is the Kamo family curse technique. Kamo thinks highly of Megumi because he has the Zenin family curse technique, 10 Shadows, which allows him to summon 10 Shikigami to fight, although he wishes Mai and Maki inherited it instead. Meanwhile, Inumaki, trying to find the cursed spirit, instead finds Hanami, part of Geto's group. As we see elsewhere, Mahito and a cursed user named Juzo waiting for their plan to set in motion. Kamo, we learn, was born to a dad who could not get his wife to give birth to a son who had blood manipulation, so he had a mistress to give birth to Kamo, and as to protect his mother, Kamo acted as a true heir. He's also happy Megumi is strong and says the two of them will be pillars to support the sorcerer families, but Megumi claims he has no connections to the Zenins. Megumi then summons a new Shikigami, Max Elephant, who sweeps Kamo out, who in turn throws a blood pack onto Nue and controls it with Crimson Binding. However, their fight is interrupted by a huge wooden branches as they see Inumaki running to them as he commands the two to run away. Outside, Juzu sets up a talisman to call a curtain to cover the area, and the heads of the school realize that something is wrong and go to rescue the students, with Mei Mei staying in the room using her crows to monitor them. Gojo and the others, however, don't make it in time before the curtain covers as Gojo goes to tear it, but it seems like the curtain was made specifically to stop Gojo at the cost of letting anyone else enter. So the Kyoto principal and Utahime go in. Hanami meanwhile attacks the three with Inumaki slowing him down, but it doesn't do much. Hanami speaks a language that they can understand despite being foreign in sound. He goes how he wants to protect the planet and the earth needs time without humans so that plants can regrow. Utahime and the principal meet Juzo, who demands to know where Gojo is. Juzo then realizes he was tricked by some other curse user. There's no Gojo here. As the principal goes to deal with him while Utahime runs off ahead. And yes, this dude is a heavy metal fan. The three meanwhile fight Hanami, with Inumaki getting weaker each time he speaks as Hanami stabs Nue and pummels Kamo. But with one final attack, Inumaki blasts Hanami away, who lands near Maki. As Hanami says her sword won't work and it breaks, but Megumi works out that the trees in its eyes are its weak points. Megumi then gives Maki a special grade cursed tool, Playful Cloud, which is able to hit Hanami. As Megumi summons Divine Dog Totality, as when one of his Shikigami dies, the other can take its energy to get stronger. The three fight, but Megumi gets infected by Hanami's cursed sprouts while Hanami stabs Maki's arm. But coming in to save them, it's Todo and Yuji finally joining the fight. Panda takes Megumi and Maki away as Yuji goes in, while Todo says he won't help until Yuji can use Black Flash. If not, Todo will watch Yuji die. Itadori asks if there's a patchwork curse in Hanami's group. He says yes, and this angers Yuji, wanting to get revenge for Junpei, and he nearly unleashes Black Flash, but his anger causes him to lose focus. Todo slaps him for not concentrating, and Yuji thanks him for the advice. Now, Black Flash is when a sorcerer applies cursed energy to within 0.000001 seconds of a physical hit. It can't be used at will, it's just the flow of battle. Like an athlete, you feel it in the zone when you're hyper-focused, and Yuji, being focused, is able to do it. This blows Hanami's arm apart. Hanami is confused because he was told that Sukuna's vessel was weak. As Hanami heals, Todo says that a special grade curse can easily fix themselves up. Hanami then removes his robe, revealing a black arm with a rosebud, and it attacks with a huge range. Hanami in the fight is now starting to enjoy the thrill of battle. As Todo reveals it's time to release his curse technique, with a flashback showing him beating up high schoolers as a kid and being bored. But a woman who is accompanied by a curse asked him what type of girl he likes, and Todo reveals his technique, Boogie Woogie, which when he claps, lets him swap places with someone else, and the two constantly trade places, throwing off Hanami. Yuji uses Black Flash 3 times in a row, and we learn that this is such a hard thing to do, as Nanami's record was 4 times. Yuji goes for a 4th hit as Hanami expects him to swap when Todo claps, but him clapping, he doesn't activate the technique. He can throw people off that way, as Yuji lands the 4th hit. However, as the fight goes on, Hanami predicts their switches, but he's badly injured from all the Black Flashes. Hanami then summons a giant giant flower which launches cursed buds at the two. However, Todo, before getting hit, thinks about a fake memory with his idol where she says the buds grew into Megumi due to his cursed energy. So Todo disengages his Jujutsu protection shield, removing his cursed energy from his body, and survives the bud. Todo also reveals he can swap with anything that has cursed energy and switches Yuji with Maki's weapon. Meanwhile, Hanami's shoulder absorbs the plant life around them and converts it into cursed energy as he begins the domain expansion. However, the curtain disappears and they all notice Gojo floating above. Meanwhile, we see the principal using music as a curse technique, while Utahime gets cursed by a user holding a sword. However, Nobara and Maki arrive to see the curtain suddenly disappear, so this new user just runs off, as Juzo looks up to see Gojo in the sky. Gojo then confronts Juzo as the principal says not to kill him, as they need to question Juzo, so he only destroys his limb. As Hanami goes to leave and Todo stops Yuji chasing after him, as he says he will be collateral damage. As Gojo then combines his limitless techniques, Reversal Red and Blue, to form into Hollow Technique Purple, a giant blast that creates a warp in space-time that hollows out the forest. It's so big they can't even tell if Hanami is gone. Meanwhile, Mahito escapes from the vaults on campus, murdering the guards, saying mission accomplished. The cursed user who escaped finds Hanami badly hurt and goes to put him out of his misery, but Mahito stops the human and says they were able to get 2 sets of special grade cursed objects that were sealed away. 6 fingers of Sukuna, as well as the death painting wounds 1, 2, and 3, all from the school. Geto helped the plan to get through Tengen School's barriers by using Mahito's cursed energy on the finger he left at Junpei's house. Because of it, they were able to find the vault whose location changes every day. They used the curtain to distract Gojo while Mahito stole the objects. Back in Tokyo, Kiyotaka confirms Mahito killed their guards and stole things. However, Juzo doesn't give any help, only muttering that he was tricked by a monk with no gender and white hair. The principals then go to cancel the event, but Gojo says it's not for them to decide. Meanwhile, in the healing ward, Yuji is happy Megumi recovered, as since he was out of cursed energy, Shoko could remove the bud. Megumi notices Yuji is stronger and states that he will try and surpass him. And now they all decide the Goodwill event part 2 will be a baseball game. Yeah. So they play baseball with their abilities while the 2 principals talk. Gakuganji admits he doesn't hate Yuji, but the rule says he has to kill him. But Yaga believes Yuji will save more lives as a sorcerer, as all sorcerers experience regret like Yaga does with his former student, Geto. And Yuji hits a home run as Tokyo win the event. Back in June, a resident complained to his manager how the auto-lock doors to his apartment were wide open. While complaining, a cursed spirit stabs him to death. And in August and September, 2 more people were killed in a similar way. So the auxiliary manager at Jujutsu, Akari, explains this all to the trio as she takes them to the mission site. She says all 3 victims attended the same junior high, so they probably all were cursed back then, and it took years to manifest. As they head to the school, which actually is Megumi's old junior high, the kids mention how the local bridge is known for suicides and was a hotspot for activity as the students would try and bungee jump from it. The kid also asks Megumi how Sumiki is. He says she's fine and Yuji asks who she is. Megumi says it's his sister. Meanwhile, Geto and Mahito use the death painting wounds, which can't be destroyed since they are special grade, but they can manifest in any human, as they pick a random person, forcing the wound down his throat, transforming him into a cursed spirit, and give it an errand to run. Meanwhile, the trio don't find anything at the bridge as one kid then arrives bringing his older sister, who is a classmate of Megumi. She says she went to the bridge years ago, but now at her home, the doors are always open, and that back then, Sumiki went with her. Megumi is shaken but tells his friends to leave, that they should go home, but in secret, he goes out to investigate by himself. However, Nobara and Yuji appear, sad he never told them about himself, to trust them as friends. He says Sumiki is in a suspended state of sleep, and the spirit could kill her at any time, so he needs to exercise it right now, as there might be a barrier under the bridge hiding the curse, like in the detention center. So they wait till night and cross the river, now inside the cursed domain. However, the death painting spirit also appears as well, so Yuji goes to fight it, while Megumi and Nobara deal with the main curse. The painting curse spits acidic blood at Yuji, but he dodges. Meanwhile, Nobara whacks the spots where the curse appears, but the curse itself avoids being hit by randomly appearing in different spots. Megumi knows his curse is probably very weak due to it having a wide range of influence. However, another curse reaches into the domain and pulls Nobara out, but she isn't phased at all. Man, she is so cool. The curse fighting Yuji notices his older brother and leaves the domain. Megumi then tells Yuji to chase after it while he stays stays inside. As Nobara fights this person but can't tell if it's a curse or a human, they reveal their errand didn't include killing sorcerers as Megumi continues to fight the domain curse, where he wins but a new tunnel appears, showing the domain is not disappearing. As Megumi realizes the first death was in June, the same time as when Sukuna was reborn, and so a special grade curse appears before Megumi, which now holds another Sukuna finger, just like in the detention center. And this is what the death painting wombs were looking for. It is strong against Megumi, but he remembers recently how he asked Gojo to train him. Gojo says Megumi is stronger than Yuji, but his mentality holds him back. Gojo says that no matter how many allies you have, a sorcerer dies alone, and Megumi is only trying to judge and match others and not focus on making himself stronger. So now Megumi pictures a version of himself that has surpassed his limits with free-flowing imagination. Impassioned and crazy, he activates domain expansion, Chimera Shadow Garden. It's not fully formed, but the floor is covered in shadows, and he uses this with his new imagination, dude finally listened to SpongeBob, to exercise the curse, grabbing the finger. Sukuna watches all this from his body part, as he can see things through all the fingers, and is very impressed with Megumi. As Megumi remembers him and Tsumiki were in first grade, his father and her mother got married and immediately separated. Gojo then visited them and told Megumi that he was being sold to the Zenin family, but he would get support from Jujutsu High in exchange for being a sorcerer. However, Tsumiki's reason she's asleep seems to be different matter from the bridge curse. Meanwhile, Nobara and Eso both notice the domain is gone and that someone got the finger, while Kichizu is fighting Yuji. However, Eso says to not go behind him and look at his back, but his brother and Yuji see it, a grotesque face. This is the rot technique, which is why he barely wears any clothing, since it gets really stuffy. He uses the technique Maximum Wing King to grow wings made out of his toxic blood and chases after the two with poison, as Yuji lifts Nobara to carry her away. However, thinking they are safe, they then get ambushed by the brother who sprays him with blood and activates rot technique Decay, which creates floral patterns on their bodies. This decomposes them and they will die in a few minutes. So back in the Meiji era, a girl got together with a curse and had a baby. She was then ostracized by her town and ran away to a temple of Noritoshi Kamo, the most evil sorcerer in history. He made her have 9 pregnancies and 9 abortions, and 3 of them were classified as special grade and sealed away. Now they are reincarnated thanks to Mahito, so they help him, with their oldest brother Chozo telling the two to live for each other. Eso says he can kill Nobara and Yuji to relieve them of their agony, however Nobara laughs, saying she's a terrible match for the curses, as she activates her straw doll technique, Resonance, and stabs herself in the wrist, injuring Eso and Kichizu since their blood was in her. She taunts them saying to deactivate to stop the pain. Eso thinks she can't hold out and they also can't move due to the pain, however Yuji is immune to the poison thanks to Sukuna and goes to attack, while Nobara continues to keep the curses immobilized. As Yuji pummels Kichizu, Eso becomes worried and calls out to his brother and instinctively stops Decay to help him out. Nobara then rushes to the brother and Yuji to Eso and both unleash Black Flash on them, crippling Kichizu and destroying Eso's left arm. Eso pleads for his brother as Nobara finishes him off with a hairpin detonating a nail in Kichizu's face. Yuji runs to Eso, who cries, which surprises Yuji. However, Kichizu's body hasn't disappeared, and he and Nobara realize they were not spirits, but rather human bodies. But a truck comes flying out of the tunnel and Eso jumps on, taking the passengers hostage. However, before getting away, Nobara uses resonance on Eso's severed arm, piercing his chest with nails with a Black Flash activation. Yuji then goes to finish Eso off, apologizing to him. And they find Megumi, who says for Yuji to not eat the finger, since they don't know how many Yuji can withstand without Sukuna taking over. But he gives it to him, reminding him, don't eat it. Yet, remember, Sukuna can make his mouth appear on any part of the body, and eats the finger. As the three then return home, where we see 2 days later Gojo on a phone call talking about what happened with Utahime, asking her to bring things for a party, as he pays money to Meimei to then find out who the spy in the school is. As we see Geto, Mahito, and the third brother, who notices that his siblings are dead. However, Mahito is excited at this news, as Megumi tells Nobara to not tell Yuji that Sukuna's revival is what caused the whole bridge incident, as Yuji then tells Sukuna not tell Megumi that Sukuna is the reason the curses are coming to kill people. As we see Todo and Meimei telling the principal, recommending Maki, Panda, Megumi, Nobara, and Yuji to get grade 1 rank promotions. Thus ends Season 1, but they also made a prequel that is highly recommended to know about before Season 2, so let's get into that. In 2016, we follow Yuta Okutsu, the character mentioned many times in the main story, now years ago when he first joined, where he's getting bullied in school. However, he tells him to stop due to his curse, which is his deceased best friend, Rika Orimoto. Since they hurt Yuta, she gets mad and stuffs the bullies into a locker, severely injuring them. Gojo learns of this and holds Yuta in a room full of talismans. Yuta agrees to stay here forever in isolation. He can't even kill himself as Rika won't allow it. However, Gojo says, how about becoming a student at our school to learn how to use your curse? You can help others with this power. So he agrees and meets 3 first-year students, Maki, Inumaki, and Panda. But they are shocked to see a powerful curse following Yuta and attack, as a school isn't a place for cursed people. However, Rika retaliates to protect Yuta. As Gojo tells them how in 2011, Yuta was given an engagement ring from his childhood friend to marry her when they were older. However, she died in a horrific car accident, and her spirit has cursed him ever since. So the trio try to get along with Yuta. Maki though is annoyed at him because Yuta acts like a weakling, when in reality, he's always safe since Rika protects him. So the first mission for Yuta and Maki is to go to a school where kids have been disappearing. Gojo casts a curtain around it and tells them to hunt the curse inside. However, in the school, the smaller curses don't attack due to Yuta's powerful curse scaring them away. And Maki asks to see his ID, thinking he's a grade 4, but in actuality he's a special grade, shocking the both of them. But they then find a curse who eats them both, with Maki's weapon falling outside. As they see 2 kids inside, both affected by the curse. This slowly begins to affect Maki as well, while the kids beg Yuta to save them. Maki asks why did he join the school, and he says he wants to be with people and relied on by others, but more importantly to believe that it's okay for him to keep on living. Maki says by exercising curses, that's how you can achieve that. So Yuta pulls out Rika's ring and calls on her. Rika manifests and bursts out of the ring and crushes the evil curse, as Gojo watches on. With Rika exercising the curse, Yuta then carries the 3 to safety. And afterwards, Gojo tells him that everyone will be fine, as Yuta reveals that this is the first time he summoned Rika willingly. Yuta though reveals he is actually cursing Rika, rather than the other way around. Gojo says it could be so, as love results in the most distorted curses. Yuta's goal now being to unravel Rika's curse. So then while meeting the higher ups, Gojo is reprimanded for allowing Rika to form, but Gojo says they need to learn more about her, as we see Yuta training with a wooden sword against Maki. Gojo told Yuta that to unravel her, you first need to control the curse by imbuing her energy into objects like this katana, just as you did with the ring. Panda also on the sidelines notices Maki is happier lately and thinks she and Yuta will be good together as a couple. Gojo now tells Yuta to go with Inumaki, the only grade 2 here, but don't let Rika out on the mission. Just use that sword. They then find the shopping district teeming with curses, which Inumaki takes care of, as the boy uses cough syrup to help fix his voice while fighting. However, they realize they have been trapped inside by another curtain as a more powerful curse appears, using flashes of lights to break open holes in the ground. Yuta saves Inumaki and the 2 flee, both realizing they have to kill the curse to escape the curtain. Yuta channels Rika into the sword and cuts the curse, but it's not deep enough. However, while doing this, he grabs Inumaki's dropped cough syrup, letting him finish off the curse, and they celebrate the victory. But a sorcerer watches on from above, having grabbed Yuta's ID. As Yuta on the way back learns that Inumaki was born with his family sigil, meaning he could never speak normally and has accidentally cursed people in the past. Meanwhile, Gojo, speaking with Kiyotaka, realizes the enemy who trapped Yuta is one of the 4 special grade sorcerers, Suguru Geto. As we see Geto pretending to be a priest, where he claims to heal people of their ailments, but instead is collecting their curses for his own use. He, however, despises humans alongside his assistant, Minami Suda. Afterwards, he meets with the group to bring about the destruction of Tokyo Jujutsu High, and they all head to the school, traveling in a giant pelican curse. Geto rushes up to greet Yuta and says today's society is wrong, as sorcerers have to protect the weak, so he wants to eliminate all non-sorcerers. Geto then comments to Gojo on how strong his students are, but insults Maki as a failure of the Zenin family. This though annoys Yuta, as someone just insulted his friend. While Gojo demands to know why Geto is here, and Geto reveals he intends to declare war. That a night of 100 demons in Kyoto and Shinjuku, he will summon curses to kill all the non-sorcerers, and challenges the schools to save the people. The group then leave the way they came, a big ass bird. Hyaga then holds a meeting on how to stop the attack, and on the day, December 24th, Geto reveals that he probably can't win, but if he can kill Yuta, this will let him capture Rika, and that was his main goal, to isolate Yuta. As we see Maki explaining her family dynamic to Yuta, which impresses him on Maki's resolve. However, outside they suddenly notice a curtain engulfing the school as Geto appears. Meanwhile in Shinjuku, hundreds of curses appear as Miguel, part of Geto's team, goes to fight Gojo, the objective only to being to buy time. However, Kiyotaka informs Gojo on what's happening with Yuta, and Gojo teleports Inumaki and Panda back to school. Gojo then gets attacked but is very angry, breaking his playful demeanor, as Inumaki and Panda break through the curtain and reach Geto, with Inumaki crushing him with his commands. However, Geto reappears with his curses as Yuta comes out to see all his friends injured while Geto goes insane. Yuta becomes enraged and calls Rika out, while Geto sends weak curses to see how Yuta will respond. Rika transports the injured to a safe space, and Yuta uses a reverse curse technique to heal them up. Rita then gets angry at Yuta for helping another girl, however Yuta sternly warns her, finally controlling the curse. And back with Geto, Yuta asks why the user didn't attack, who responds that he's impressed that Yuta was able to pull off a healing technique. Yuta then copies Inumaki's speech with a megaphone, commanding Geto's curses to die. Geto is very impressed Yuta is using such high-level jujutsu that Rika is a boundless entity of cursed energy that can be shaped into any technique. Meanwhile, as Gojo is dealing with the cursed users in Shinjuku, Geto arms himself with the cursed tool and goes to attack. Yuta's sword breaks from the cursed energy in it, but don't worry, his hands are free. Yuta says he doesn't know whether or not Geto is right in all his sayings, but because he threatened his friends, he has to die. In response, Geto summons his most powerful cursed spirits in a technique, Maximum Uzumaki, to destroy Yuta. But Yuta goes to thank Rika for protecting him all this time and kisses her, saying that this will be the last time. Then afterwards he will be together with her forever. Geto realizes Yuta is sacrificing himself to remove any limits on his cursed energy, and Yuta uses love as the most powerful curse. He fires a blast into Geto's spirits, causing a huge explosion. As Geto manages to flee, missing an arm, and swears to get Rika, but is confronted by Gojo. Geto confirms to him that all his followers have fled, but he did trust Geto enough to not injure Panda and Inumaki. He gives Geto a final chance to any last words before he'll kill him, and Geto says he has no disdain for Jujutsu High, he just simply couldn't be happy in this world, no matter what. As we see the gang awake Yuta, all glad he's okay, however Rika calls out to him, and he agrees to go with her, but her form shatters, revealing a young Rika spirit. Gojo then arrives saying the curse was lifted, and also that Yuta is a descendant of Mishizane Sugawara, which means he's a distant relative of Gojo, and Yuta's rejection of Rika's death back then as kids was actually what manifested her to become a cursed spirit. Yuta cries, feeling responsible for everything, but Rika embraces him and says she is happier than ever as the spirit disappears, finally being put to rest. And sometime afterward, Gojo walks with Yuta saying that Geto was his fault, also returning his ID to Yuta. However, Maki interrupts with Inumaki and Panda as Yuta smiles, still wearing the ring Rika gave him. Hope you enjoyed this. Please subscribe to see more explained videos and click the one on screen to see some more from me.